Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another Salty Saturday morning. I am your host, Mr. Kadish, the belabored producer of the Salty Nerd podcast. And speaking of nerds, we got a lot to talk about today, and I want to introduce my fantastic panel of them, starting with Dutch Butters. How you doing, Mr. Butters?
I'm good. I'm feeling a little buttery today. I don't know what I'm supposed to say.
How's your cholesterol?
It's probably too high. Filled with extra doses of medications and protein shakes. So, good stuff.
All good. And the Lord of the Shells, the King of the Pineapple Pizza, the man of the hour, OMB Reviews. How you doing, Odin?
I'm doing great. I actually have a new shelf in my background.
I noticed. Very fancy. Very fancy
books.
Shelf.
Yes, with all my religion theology books on there.
Is it the master shelf?
Yes.
Yeah, there ain't no way that one's collapsing.
Hey, I did a shake test and everything. It should be good to go. Pain to put together because it's one of those where it's like one of those modern, it's just straight up, space-saving shelves essentially where it's all like sticking out in different angles. So it took me like a second to figure it out, but once I did, it's not too bad.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged to welcome Tom Cruise himself to the program. How you doing, Mr. Cruise? Good to see you.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't do a Tom Cruise impression, so I don't know.
Mr. Reagan,
Mr. Kadish.
Mr. Reagan is back to spit some truths on the Salty Nerds podcast, Salty Saturday. Thank you for being here, Chris. I know that it is very late where you are right now.
Yeah, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I am wide awake just for you. I got chocolate and everything.
Well, we appreciate you being here this late. At least you showed up on time, unlike Brian from the Popcast, who is MIA. We think that he's oversleeping.
That little bitch.
That little bitch, indeed. But we love him. Yeah, and if you're wondering where Tom Connors Jr. is, he will be joining us later on in the show, hopefully. He's got some other stuff going on in Milwaukee, Wisconsin area, where they had the what do you call it? The Republican National Convention.
Was he actually there?
No, he wasn't there. Tom never leaves his house. What are you kidding? Tom barely shows up on the live streams, let alone leaves his house. Come on. But since we're here, I just want to give a quick shout out to our new top donator, Brian G, who dropped 3 hundos on us last Saturday to overtake Scotty Dub as our top contributor in 2024.
Brian G, have you ever thought of watching my live stream called Toxic Masculinity? Feel free at any time to check that out.
Yeah, but by the way, Mr. Reagan, what days do you go live on for your Toxic Masculinity live stream?
Monday and Thursday. I think we go at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, and I think that's 7 a.m. my time in Indonesia, because I'm in Indonesia at the moment, hanging out with the Indonesians.
Mr. Reagan wisely decided to leave the country during an election year, just in case civil war were to break out, so he could laugh at us.
I literally have been working out where I'm going to go just in case Biden wins, because if Biden wins, at this point, we know we're basically all going to, be sent to the gulag. So I asked a buddy of mine, I'm not going to say whom, but he had left the country as well, and I literally called him and I go, hey, did you leave the country because you were worried about being controlled by the FBI? I texted him, right? I just get a text back, 3 letters, yes. I was kind of joking. I was hoping you weren't going to say that, but no, yeah, for real. And then he texted me all about his plans to escape the country in case, shit goes down. He's got a private pilot and all kinds of way more than me.
Hopefully he's got
jealous.
the whole D-Google phone and maybe the phone with has the shut off button on it where you can shut off your location services and stuff.
I need that. Well, the crazy thing is, because of the business I'm in and the people that I know, we literally have to worry about this shit. It's the most we live in weird times, you guys. Weird times.
And we'll be talking about those weird times in just a second. But I want to give a big shout out to Brian G, who is a new viewer, new contributor to the Salty Nerd podcast. Really appreciate those generous offerings. But he did not dethrone Scotty Dub for the largest single donation, which was $1.99. by Scotty Dub, and then followed up by William Forbes for 120. Ryan G came in at 100 3 times. And our most regular contributor, Mexican Iron Man, he always drops us a super chat whenever he shows up on Saturdays. So we appreciate him. But a big shout out to our regular gifters, Jillian N., the queen of gifted subs, WG, Sam Schwager, Major Chai Chai, and Eric Winberg. You guys are always so generous and gifting subs. And speaking of which, we've already got some gifted subs here. So
we've already met our goal for the week.
Nice.
Great.
Yeah. Eric Winberg with 1 Salty Nerd Podcast gifted membership. Thank you so much. Major Chai Chai for 5 Salty Nerd gifted podcast memberships. And Queen Jillian in gifted 5 Salty Nerd Podcast memberships for a total of 11. Guys, should we go for a stretch goal, or are we just happy that we hit 10?
That Jillian girl, is she single? She looks all right.
I don't know. Why don't you
anytime soon?
Why don't you join our membership, Chris, and you can chat with her there. So
I'll do that.
Are you single, Mr. Reagan? That's the real question.
Oh, he's single and ready to mingle. That's why he's in. That's a real reason why he left the country. All the women were chasing him. So.
Well, I only date Russians, and weirdly, this is a true story. I was actually in Sweden, and I was dating a Swedish girl, and I asked her, if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go? Because I was trying to figure out where to go after. I was traveling through Europe. I was trying to figure out where to go after that. And she goes, I've always wanted to go to Bali. And I'm like, Bali? I don't really know anything about Bali. So when I broke up with her, I booked a ticket to Bali. This is really true. I booked a ticket to Bali. I had no idea really anything about Bali. I came here, tons of Russian women.
Wow.
Like Russian women everywhere. It's like, it's not quite the buffet of background acting that background acting was, but it's close.
Mr. Reagan, I wanted to ask you, did you hear about spy hunter Max Boot being married to a Chinese spy?
I heard something about that. Yeah, very briefly. I just kind of...
Yeah, the Max Boot, the Washington Post contributor who basically perpetuated the Russian collusion hoax for years, came out recently that his Chinese wife was actually indicted for being a unregistered foreign agent with China. Yeah, she got arrested.
That must have been where Fang Fang came from.
Yeah, Eric Swallow, who still has his security clearance, you know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny that all these people that accused Trump of being a Russian agent are now being exposed as having slept with Chinese spies and influenced by them very intimately.
Yeah, there's a lot of Chinese spying. It's kind of weird. Like that's the one thing. Like if you go to China, I think you got to be a little bit careful what you say. But I think that if you said something like the Chinese tend to spy on the United States, I think they'd be okay with it. And they'd just be like, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we all know it's true, but it just
it's so openly
the people who most voraciously perpetuated all the lies about Trump just happened to be influenced by these Chinese.
But show
ladies.
that leader as Winnie the Pooh straight to the gulag.
Yeah, or show a black person on a Star Wars commercial or poster. You know, like that's a big thing. You know, we don't like to get too political here on the Salty Saturday show, but since we have Mr. Reagan here, I did want to kind of just throw this out there. I wanted to touch on like the whole Trump assassination thing because like there's so much stuff flying around out there right now, and since Mr. Reagan is on top of the stuff for his job, essentially, I wanted to get your take, Chris, on like what you think happened in that field in Pennsylvania. Like, there's a lot of conspiracy theories, or even just like regular theories being flown out there. So I want to get your take on what you think happened.
Here's the trouble with what's going on right now. Nobody trusts the government anymore, like at all. So everybody is, I think, kind of assumes that it must have been an inside job, and they're not trying to figure out if it's an inside job. They're trying to figure out which agencies were involved. That seems to be what people are doing right now. And the head of the Secret Service, who I call Director Cheeto, Matt got a little bit confused by that. Basically, this woman, her name is Cheetle, Director Cheetle. She used to be the head of security for Pepsi, and I think Elon Musk made the joke that she is Director Cheeto because Pepsi owns Cheetos.
So she went from being in charge of guarding boxes of Cheetos and
Yes.
inanimate objects, and then went into being
To
the
the
director
Secret
Starting
Service.
the president
Yeah.
and
The
other
Secret Service,
Fun fact: Pepsi headquarters has no sloped roofs on it. So.
That's
Well,
right.
those slope roofs are very problematic.
Yeah.
So.
At
Unless
the
you're a
one point
cow.
they did, and then she
Unless
had
you're a
them
cow.
all removed.
I don't know how Odin's books are standing up over there on his sloped shelf.
So here's
So
here's the
dangerous.
thing. Okay, each of them is covered in cow skin. There's something about
Oh.
cows.
Okay.
They
saying.
stick to those roofs.
They
I
can.
did see that picture of the cow on the roof. That was pretty funny. Yeah, there's all these memes and stuff going on. That's the thing. Like she comes out and she goes, "Oh, we didn't have a sniper on that roof or a lookout or anything because it was a sloped roof and that was dangerous." Well, but there were actual snipers on another sloped roof with an even more steep grade. There's pictures obviously, and so it was like very obviously a BS explanation. So I was saying this before the show, like even if no one was involved, even if this really was a lone gunman, which is a distinct possibility, why is this chick lying about the reason for not having a gunman there? I mean, obviously we're going to figure that out pretty damn quick. Like, why would you even say that? What do you think for half of a second? I know you're a DEI hire, but that was a ridiculous lie. So of course everybody's going to be like, all right, this is a conspiracy. She's trying to cover it up and all this kind of stuff. The reality is we don't have solid evidence to indicate. I mean, there's a lot of evidence to indicate that this is the biggest F up in history. And it's so incompetent that people can't believe it's incompetence.
Mhm.
Like the fact that you would have that roof, which is like really the only place around where, a gunman would have a clean shot of the president. Yeah. That's like the one place you don't have anybody. Everybody's just sitting there going, that's essentially the fundamental screw up. Everybody's like, that's not real. That cannot be real. Like they had to do that on purpose. Right. And so people are saying, oh, they shot from inside that area and they blamed it on the guy on the roof and all this kind of stuff. I mean, that's just total guesswork.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just people just like speculating. I think that's probably almost for sure not true. There's some things I've looked at. I've been like, okay, that's just obviously BS. Why is anybody even reposting this? But there's other things that do make you go, there was a song in the 90s, things that make you go,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that have made me go, So yeah, look, I wouldn't put it past the federal government, people within the federal government to have set something up and to do something. The thing that I don't really get is why you would have a public execution. Like I believe there's poisons that can that basically mimic like a heart attack and are not easily detected, through an autopsy. So you would think that they'd do something like that to kill off Trump, but they really wanted to kill him off. The only reason you would publicly assassinate somebody would be to send a message. But I don't know who you would want to send a message to. I think that that anybody who wants Trump dead, that's the primary goal. I don't think there's any other, anything else they need to be done within that context. So I don't know. I don't really see much evidence that there's some kind of deeper conspiracy. There may be, though. I'm not completely against the possibility because I have seen
that we're at that point
stuff
in our political discourse,
right?
Where
it is
it's
crazy,
like,
right?
If it happened, if it came out one day that all this was just planned by the Secret Service director, all of us would be like, yeah, that makes sense. That tracks.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
here's
Like,
how sad this
we
has
knew
become.
it. A lot of people would go, we knew it.
And I think the biggest thing too, and this is the thing that drives me crazy, is there is no actual official narrative yet. Like there is no narrative. We have no idea still after all this time. You think about some of the major events that have happened, and we had a narrative almost instantaneously, like within at least a day or two. It's been, a full week removed away
and they're
from
not
this
only
thing?
that, but they're saying that they have no motive for this guy.
Yeah. Now, I will say this much, because I see some people mentioning it in the chat, and I know a lot of people have made a lot of, headway about it, of no social media presence. That's just preposterous. I know, as a teacher, I know students where their parents are very, very strict. And, literally, they have no phone, and they have no social media presence. So it's actually not too crazy for me to hear that. Especially as someone who's more of a traditional Catholic. I know a lot of Catholic families that are also very anti-social media.
Yeah, but Odin, how many strict parents raise a kid who goes off to become a sniper?
No. Again, that's what I'm just saying. But that specific part of it is not the crazy thing.
You kind of sparked something in my head just now as we're talking, which is that had this been an inside job, I think they would have had a better story about this kid already. You know, I think they would have had something ready to go. I mean, they're incompetent, but when it comes to like
creating narratives,
creating narratives, they're pretty good. I mean, they tend to do pretty well.
You don't know what my head went there, because every time you talk about or bring up the word COVID, you almost immediately get labeled on YouTube with the official narrative underneath it. I don't think any of that's happened with this story. I don't think there's really been any really ramifications, for the most part, that I've at least been hearing about, of people talking about it, because there is no narrative.
Nobody knows what the truth is.
Well,
exactly.
you guys know what's funny is that, so, you know, there's this label about like election deniers, or like if you think there were some shenanigans going on in 2020, you're labeled an election denier. But there's like this huge swath of lefties who are now assassination deniers, people who are saying that like the bullets weren't actually shot, like it didn't come close to Trump, you know, all this stuff. It just boggles my mind that well, first of all, I think the left was like so out of whack after the debate that that kind of threw them off their narrative game, honestly.
Yeah. And
you want to tell me a theory about that real quick? Sorry.
I was going to say, all I know about this is it seemed like the Secret Service is really lax. I went to a rally for Bush. It was years and years ago. And all I know is there was Secret Service people everywhere. They were on every rooftop within a half a mile of the stage where all these people were at. You couldn't get close to this place without getting patted down and going through metal detectors. And there was helicopters flying around. And so when I compare what I went through with that to what this was, it just seems like this was very, very lax, because this guy was on a roof 140 yards
130,
away.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, something seems fishy to me.
Well, I looked up the distance that an average deer hunter is comfortable shooting a deer, and it was between, I think, 100 and 300 meters, which is almost, and you know, that, so this distance is less than half of the minimum amount of distance needed from like a whitetail deer hunter. You know what I mean? Yeah. But the reason I think that these journalists feel comfortable really saying these horrific things about, it was just shrapnel from the teleprompter hit him in the ear, they didn't really get hit, or to say that it's an actual hoax that Trump planned it himself and all this kind of stuff.
That's insane.
They've obviously become desperate, right? They know Trump's going to win now. Biden's not going to win. But why are they desperate? Why aren't they just kind of going, you know what? It's not what I want, but I accept it. Fine. You know, it's annoying. Like what we all had to do in 2020 when we, you know, a lot of us believe that the election was stolen, but we just kind of like went, all right, we'll just wait 4 years. Hopefully we can beat the cheat next time. Why aren't they doing that at this point? Because it's obvious that Trump's going to win now. I think, and I've thought this for a long time, a lot of people in DC and a lot of people probably in the media as well have some skeletons in their closet. And I think the FBI probably has files on all these people, you know, like what used to be done back in the old days. I think that's still done. And I think if Trump gets in, you know, I think he's clean. I don't think he's bribed. I don't think he's blackmailed. So he could bring in a team led by, say, Giuliani. This is my suggestion, and I will definitely try to get Trump to do this. Bring in a team and have them comb through all the FBI files on Pelosi, comb through all the FBI files on Biden, comb through all the FBI files on Hillary, on Schiff, on Schumer. Find as much as they can. Find out what they know. What, you know, are these people being controlled? Even Obama, probably there's some stuff on, right? You release that stuff to the public. You prosecute these people. They could go to prison for the rest of their lives. I think this is the reason they've been after Trump so hardcore. And it's the reason why they don't even care that he almost got killed. They're willing to just say anything because that's how desperate they are. And I think this is why they're desperate. Anyway, that's been my theory for a long time. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I think.
All I can say is I hope that at some point there is a lawsuit, preferably by the family of the volunteer firefighter who passed away, against any of the major media personalities. Because it's like, I'm sorry, if you're going to have people like Alex Jones have to pay like billions, trillions of dollars, right, the entire GDP of a country back to victims of a terrible event, I'm sorry, but that should be now the bare minimum of what's going on in this case too.
Yeah, there's precedence for that, right?
Yep.
And it wasn't just Corey Compatore. Is that how you pronounce his name?
I believe so.
Like there were like two other men who got like really seriously wounded.
Still in the hospital. Yeah.
Yeah. Like they almost died, right? and I know that there's this kind of movement on X that I've seen recently with a lot of left wingers who are basically denying the fact that bullets were actually shot. Like they're like, oh, it was just firecrackers, right? Like or like something like that. And it's like people literally got hit by the bullets.
Yep.
You know, it's like, how can you deny that?
Those
like,
people just need to be shouted down. Just
Yeah.
blanked out, man. It's just like, tell them shut up. Can't
But
deal with those people.
one of the craziest things to me, and Chris, I'd like to hear your opinion on this too, is during the Republican National Convention, they actually had Gold Star families come out and tell the story of like their fallen children who died in the service of the country in Afghanistan, that Joe Biden basically just never even acknowledged. He said that no one died under his watch. And then MSNBC and CNN cut away while they were up on stage telling their stories. And so like the people watching those networks didn't even see those people and get to hear what they were talking about. I think that is worth suing over personally.
Well, you know, at the end of the day, these networks, they have to talk about what they think is the most important stuff that they're seeing on the stage. And with MSNBC, CNN, NBC, these companies, they don't want to cover the entire Republican National Convention because to a lot of their viewers, it's going to be a little bit boring, you know? And so they're going to get the headline guys, you know, they're going to get Trump, obviously. They're going to get probably Vance. They're going to get, you know, Hulk Hogan, maybe something like that, right? The more entertaining things. You kind of have to just do that. And I actually don't begrudge them from cutting away from those folks, because even though for us, you know, they're people that we care about and we want to hear their stories. I can kind of understand people going, well, these are people that nobody knows who this is.
Yeah.
So you know, we're just going to cut away and we're going to have commentary from, you know, Joy Reid and her bunch of, you know, her, what do you call it? What do you call it? A coven, her little coven of witches, have them talk about what just happened or whatever it is. You know, I can kind of understand. I can kind of see their thinking there. It's not what we want to see, but it's definitely what, you know, a left wing.
Well, guys,
network. It's natural for them, I think.
Speaking of what we want to see, we now have Brian from the Popcast, who has finally woken up, pounding his caffeinated beverage. Welcome, Brian.
I know.
Dude, I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I'm working like two jobs. I worked late last night.
Little hair of the dog there, Brian?
No.
No. Okay.
It's caffeinated. It's caffeinated.
Speaking of Brian's.
Yes, speaking of Brian's, we are proud to announce that a record has been broken.
Wow.
Brian G, for $250, is now officially unseated Scotty Dub as the single biggest super chat we've gotten this year. Brian, thank you so much. You are an officer and a gentleman and a patriot. Hold your fist up in the air victoriously.
Man, I'm so happy I can go to Subway now this week.
Yeah. We can actually
next month
and buy some cups.
we can actually afford to eat at Five Guys now. So it's like just one meal at Five Guys. It's pretty good. Okay, whoever was number one gets to sit at the kiddies table. That's a gauntlet thrown down there, Scotty Dub. And by the way, if it is a conspiracy, at least we can take some comfort in the fact that the deep state is very bad at taking down Trump. I feel like this season of America was written by Larry David. Not far off there. Not far off there. But guys, now I have to redo the graphic for next week again.
Yeah.
To show that Brian G is now the official number one super chatter on the podcast. So got to change that graphic. I know. I don't mind it, Brian. Make my life as difficult as you want. It's fine. Both Brians. Yeah. Since we now have the second Brian, the cheaper one on the podcast, I wanted to get his take. Brian, we were just talking about the assassination attempt on Donald Trump and how people are viewing it. Did you have a take on this?
Oh yeah, I got plenty of takes on that. I mean, I guess I'll keep it brief. Yeah, it is funny. Brian G has a good point. This is like we're in season 3 of America, and this is the hero's return. You know, like think about it. Like the first movie in every trilogy, the first movie is, you know, the hero wins. The second movie is, well, it's not looking good. The bad guy's gonna win, like Infinity War or Empire Strikes Back. And now we're in the third movie, and the hero's return, the redemption. the completion. You know, they tried to.
I never thought about it that way. That's pretty interesting, actually.
Thanks.
Yeah.
They've thrown everything at Trump, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is a deep state thing, then they tried to also kill him, and they failed. So this is an interesting. We're living in interesting times because I believe the Overton window is really shifting, and this assassination attempt and his, reaction to it, the fight, and all that, really, really helped Trump, and it really, I believe it helped the country because a lot of people are really throwing their patriot flags out there now, and
have you guys seen the video of Zuckerberg talking about this?
I was just gonna say that. That's crazy.
He's like, yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
badass.
He's going MAGA. Like, what the hell is going on?
Crazy with his curly hair and his chain, bro.
Think about this though. Trump wasn't just lucky that bullet missed him. I mean, that was obviously the ultimate, right? And he basically has thanked God himself. He believes God saved his life. Whether you believe that or not, that's up to you. But that's what Trump seems to think. But this is the crazy. If you think about this, the bullet could have missed by a millimeter the other way. Think about this. It could have missed by a millimeter the other way. And then we would not really have seen the visceral effect of the assassination attempt.
Right.
It hit so perfectly his ear, right? The blood streamed down his face as he was down crouched on the ground. So when he got back up with that fist in the air, you saw the blood on his face. The whole world saw that. Mm-hmm. Everyone in the world saw that image. That's going to go down in history as one of the most iconic photos in the history of the country. The guy is like mythical
in history books. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, in history, but the guy is like mythical hero level status at this point.
Yeah,
he's an American legend. It's legendary. He's so lucky it hit him. I never want him to get plastic surgery on that ear. I hope he hasn't already. I want him to keep the divot, because that's a war wound, man. He's got to keep that forever.
Honestly,
they literally
amazing.
I'm surprised as a showman that he is, that during his speech at the RNC, he didn't take the bandage off. Because that would have been an amazing moment to be like, to all those crazy people out there trying to claim that this thing is not real. Like, boom.
You missed!
Odin, you're a genius. He should have done that, but maybe the doctor didn't want him to. But he should have, really. If
you listen to Keith Olbermann, it's like, we have not gotten any medical reports yet, so how could we even believe?
Right.
They couldn't have scripted this any better.
No, it was literally perfect. Yeah.
Which is I think why some Democrats believe that it's faked.
Yeah.
Because it seems so impossible. It seems impossible.
You mean like
a miracle.
Every single headline was like loud noises.
You mean fake, like and scripted, like how Biden got COVID all of a sudden and they're putting him back in the basement
real quick.
Yeah. I immediately tweeted, "Hey guys, is there any toxins, for instance, that maybe mimic the effects of COVID?" I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know.
Allergy attack or snotty nose.
Hey, guys. You know what isn't so well scripted is the Acolyte.
Oh, here we go. Changing the subject.
But Brian, it's the last one.
That was a really good.
Brian,
Brian,
it's the last one.
It's the last one. This is the season finale of the Acolyte, and to honor this special moment, we have a short clip that I'm going to play for everyone. So strap in, people. Here we go.
If you only knew the power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
No! All right, Dutch Butters, what did you think?
I didn't want to watch that.
What did you think of the season finale of The Acolyte?
This show made me want them to bring Wade back. Wade.
Wade.
No. Like I say every week, I don't have a lot to say about this show. It's no good. It's just they lost me completely episodes ago, and I've just been watching this and motherfucking you the whole time. literally the whole time I have to watch these shows, I blame Kadish for making me have to watch it. So I don't process it very well. And when they started doing this thing with the whole, the very first force choke and, how women are responsible for doing all this kind of stuff. It's like, well, it does kind of make sense that women are responsible for the dark side of the force and all the bad things that happen. Right.
Such a great take.
It makes perfect sense when you think about it, I guess. Leslie Headland's actually pretty smart. See all these evil women out there trying to change the universe, with their force scissoring and their immaculate conceptions.
You're saying that this is some kind of like a metaphor for feminism.
I guess so. Maybe that's probably what they're going for, but
Yeah.
I think they got the message wrong.
Feminism equals the dark side of the force.
Dark side of the force, women. The founders of the dark side. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just they killed everybody that I thought was interesting, except for the Darth smiley face. I kind of feel like he could be an interesting character, but he's not. And and then they drip in things like Darth Plagueis, who's supposed to be like 9 years old or
He's like
something
a pervert
at this
sitting in
point,
the
right?
corner.
He's sitting around the corner looking at them, and
Hey,
he's
what's
like,
going on over here?
like, I really hope they make out so I can watch.
Yeah, make out.
Yeah, and and then the whole Yoda thing at the end with it was too much. I didn't even wait around for the music or the credits. I just turned it off. It's like, oh, Yoda, okay, whatever. That's your big thing. Okay, Leslie, whatever. Piss off. And that was it. That was yeah. It's like green face you are. Leslie Headland's girlfriend you are. Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, man. Bad show. I hope they don't get a second season because I really don't want to be forced to watch it. I'm glad it's over. So that's my take, man. I'm sorry. I don't have a whole lot to say about it. It's just wasn't
Okay.
good. It wasn't good.
All right. Well, Brian from the Popcast,
Hey, what's up?
what's your final take on the Acolyte?
All right. So the lightsaber,
The bleeding of the crystal. Yeah.
What drives me nuts about that is all the people are like, no, it's technically canon because it happened in a comic book once. And you know what? Here's the deal. Maybe that's true, but I do not believe for a moment that Leslie read the comic book and was like, we need to bleed the crystal.
She got that from Pablo.
No. She was not thinking canonically for sure. And I'm not even sure if it is canon because didn't all the EU stuff get decanonized? But that whole thing didn't make any sense. Just because you read that one comic where they bled the crystal with the dark side,
the comic came out under the new EU, the Disney EU.
So whatever it is, it still doesn't make any sense. Like kyber crystals, that's what make the color of the lightsaber. So having not read the comic, but having been a lifelong Star Wars fan, the second I saw that, I was like, oh my God. Oh, wait till Saturday morning. I'm just waiting for Matt to make like a 10-minute video on the topic. I'm glad it's over. I'm glad that next week we will not have to speak of this atrocity to our once favorite science fiction movie.
We have more atrocities to watch coming up.
Yeah.
I know. Rings of Power coming up.
Yep. My 10-minute video is going to be based around entirely like flammable rocks and metal inside of a mountain and being able to hack a electric door when the generators were destroyed 16 years ago.
Special guest featuring Corey's lab setting rocks on fire.
We still never got a Jedi rock. Still didn't get one.
Well, still waiting for a live action version of Geo. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Odin, what was your take on the final episode of The Acolyte?
Man, I'm just similar to Brian. I am just so happy that this thing is finally over because we can talk about how bad shows like Ahsoka were. We can talk about how bad things like Obi-Wan, those episodes were, but just still none of them can quite hold a candle to just how on every single level this show fails. It's not just the writing, it is the acting, it is the direction, it's every single element. Even the stunt choreography fails. And that's the other part that I know has gotten some attention is that almost, flying, tiger hidden dragon moment where they're just in this perfect swoop down,
Oh man.
sliding, and it just again, there's so many moments where I just put my head in my hand, and I was just like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? And sure enough, it was absolutely happening. The thing also that just gets me about the moment with the Darth Plagueis character is I think some people are kind of missing the point with that one, because some people are like saying, oh, it's insinuating that she learned it from that Darth Plagueis learned it from the Force Witches. No. What the shot that we had is implying is that he just happened to see one of the twins existing, and from that somehow is able to then work backwards to figure out how it all works so that he can then. So it's even worse than what the general implication that people have been talking about is, because it means that he had to literally reverse engineer it from the most obscure vantage point possible. It's not like he was watching the witches do it as it happened. That would already be bad enough, because that would mean he's literally learning it from them. But no, all of those witches are essentially, dead. Still have no idea what happened to the horned one, apparently. So, okay, just going to let that one, guys, float by. And instead, all we have is, oh yeah, he just looked at her and I guess sensed that she was different, and then from that was able to then pick these things up. It was just so nonsensically put together, and I hate every single thing about this show. It's not even bad in a funny way.
The Darth Plagueis thing is so insulting.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, he learned how to do this thing that started the whole universe.
Well, also it establishes that Smilo Ren was his apprentice, Darth Plagueis' apprentice.
It also, to this episode, you look at it and you think, okay, why does this exist? Okay, so obviously it exists to try to explain how Darth Plagueis figured this out, which again, no one needed to know this bit of information because everything that we had in the EU was already good enough. Like, he spent years and years and years researching, trying to figure this out. And that's all you need. You don't need, he was randomly on an island and saw a Force twin. Basically, it's like, okay, yeah, because that's a good story, right? What's even worse, too, is that the entire show not only exists for that, but also exists to establish the Force choke, which is already even dumber because this show also suffers from showing things, whether it be technology or in this case Force powers, that have not been previously established in any real concrete way. So you're already basically insinuating that during the time of the High Republic, you have such a mastery of the Force that all of these different things can be done and happen, while at the same time also implicating that no one's ever done a Force choke. And it just reminded me, and I mentioned this in a stream earlier in the week, it reminded me a lot of Solo, a Star Wars story, when they were like, oh, you're going to find out where Solo got his name. And it's like, oh, a question no one ever needed to know the answer to.
And the worst possible actual answer.
Oh,
like,
I guess I'll call you
because he was
Solo because you're alone. But in this case, too, it's just like,
so stupid.
You got to kill somebody without using a weapon or anything. Oh, gosh.
Well,
what?
Odin, the funniest thing to me was, so at the end, Master Venestra, Green Lady, Master Nepotism, she basically pinned all the murders on Saul.
Yep.
But it was like Saul was at the Jedi Temple when Trinity got killed. And there were multiple witnesses that pointed to a black girl being the one who killed her. And everyone's just like, oh, okay, so Saul killed everyone. Okay, that's cool.
Yep.
Even though like his movements can be tracked by like the Jedis at the temple where Mighty Morbin Torben killed himself, and all this other stuff. It's like, dude, how do you this is even worse than the assassination on Trump in terms of like a narrative not making any sense.
This is the problem with the prequels, by the way. Like, even like if this was set in the future somehow and these were different characters, there'd be less to criticize. But the problem with prequels on prequels on prequels is that every single one of these things, they can't line up canonically and write what they want to write. So it doesn't work. We need to stop creating prequels. If this was a sequel, this was set in the future, there'd be a lot less criticism. We might still criticize the hyper power of many and the feminism stuff, but it wouldn't be so bad. It would at the very least
chime in.
Yeah,
well, Mr. Reagan, I actually Yeah, Mr. Reagan, before you get going on your diatribe, I wanted to throw it to you to ask you specifically, why do you think feminist lesbians ruin everything in entertainment?
That's kind of where I was going anyway. Look, when I was in school, I took some classes in literary stuff, like literature, reading books, and then having to talk about it. And oftentimes I wouldn't read the book, but I'd listen to everybody else talk, and then I'd come up with some BS response to impress the teacher with. And that's what I'm going to do today, because I've not seen a single episode of this show. I have no interest in it. The last thing I watched was Obi-Wan. I was so disgusted that I never watched Ahsoka. I didn't watch this one. I was just sickened. I think the reason people are a little bit pissed off is because when we were kids, we all watched these 3 movies: Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. And we were all like, you know what? This is like some of the best stuff we've ever seen, you know? And that was in the 80s when things were all pretty much awesome. You know, even something like Willow was awesome, but we're sitting there and we're like, this is the best of all these things, right? You know, I preferred Superman when I was a kid, like Superman 1 and 2. Those were amazing. Even 3 or 4, even though they were crap, I still love them. But Star Wars is epic. You know, one of the greatest film trilogies, one of the greatest films ever made. These movies,
changed the industry forever.
Changed the industry forever. I mean, it's very hard to live up to that. But what they've done here is so deeply offensive, because what they've done is they've gone, okay, let's get these hack writers in the name of DEI BS. Let's make sure that they're women. Let's make sure we get, you know, black actors, you know, all this kind of stuff. And we're all like, and everybody, I honestly, like, I think people could kind of like deal with that if the writing was amazing, but that's not the point of what they're doing. And so the writing sucks and everything sucks. Like Odin said, everything in this sucks. And what they've done is they've gone back before the trilogy that we all love, and they've taken things from the trilogy that we all love, and they've taken ownership of them. And they've said, okay, these things that we've seen in the trilogy that you guys all love, actually, it started with this story that I just wrote. That's you know, my character invented this stuff. My character did all this, and they're taking ownership of stuff that doesn't belong to them.
Yep.
Right? It's what Doomcock calls cultural vandalism. They're vandalizing pop culture, and the best of pop culture. And I think that's why everybody is so pissed off, because it's not like they're just, you know, they're tearing down statues, basically, virtually.
Right.
You know, that's what they're doing. And they're statues that we care about. This is not like the Confederacy here. This is like they're tearing down statues of Lincoln. They're tearing down statues of Washington. You know, they're tearing down statues of the good guys. And they're putting up, you know, statues of Antifa members. You know, it's a stupid metaphor, but you guys get the idea.
Yeah, that's why they demonize the Jedi. Like, I mean, literally, the other point that this show has is to show us how evil and how corrupt the Jedi are. And that's why whenever they throw in those lines about, oh, y'all are just a cult and this or that, and it's just like, this is, and with the implication of, and everyone's like, oh, man, it's going to be so awesome. We're going to put Yoda in here and everyone's going to love it. And it's like, why, if anyone's an actual Star Wars fan, why would you ever in any way be able to argue that that's a good move to put Yoda in there? Because all you're doing by having that is saying Yoda knew, was complicit. And now you've turned one of the most beloved Jedi characters in the entire history into a complete jackoff.
Yeah, it makes it worse. It makes it worse.
I think there's a broader issue here, which it became clear in the finale. Basically, Saul is the father figure of Osha and May. Like, he is someone who devoted his life to try to save these girls, right? And what you get in the final episode of The Acolyte is literally the symbolic killing of the father figure.
Wow.
And both women are complicit in it, right? And so, like, this whole thing, like, the entire message of The Acolyte is that masculinity, fatherhood, all this stuff is bad and inherently evil because it kills femininity. And the only way to truly triumph is for women to strike down the father figure. That is the entire message of the show.
You're right. That's crazy.
Well, you know, also, there's this trend I've noticed, even since I was a kid, you know, with detestable people trying to create art that inverts good and evil. This is actually a fairly common thing in film and TV, where they do this thing where they go, actually, the thing that you thought was good all along, it's actually totally evil.
It's bad.
And it's bad. You know, this is like a trendy thing. Very atheistic, very anti-Christian, very anti-Western values. It's just nasty people trying to tear down society because maybe they felt like they were dealt a bad hand in life, or they want to be provocative or something like that. And to me, that is disgusting. That's not a good message to teach children. Like, Star Wars was always a fiction for young boys. And young boys need to know good from evil. And good and evil are very, very simple concepts. And Star Wars was really good at showing that, you know? It was almost like a caricature of good and evil, but done in a way that was so fun and interesting and entertaining, that we grew up with a sense of duty and honor because of things like Star Wars and other other pop culture things that we watched when we were kids. Disney was great. Disney was great for that stuff when we were growing up. Now,
Disney was really good at good versus evil. It was very clear.
Exactly. And now they're just inverting it, intentionally inverting that, and like screwing up kids' minds. That's what I think is going
Progressive
on.
atheism. It's
but
progressive
beyond
atheism.
Progressive atheism, exactly right. Yeah.
Beyond that, Chris, in addition to being a tale about good and evil and teaching morals to an entire generation of young men, there's also a redemption arc that's inherent in Star Wars, where it's like, no matter how bad someone can be, if you do the work and you reach out to them enough, you can redeem that person. There is always a path back to goodness. It's not
that's
just
the whole concept of Christianity, isn't it? The whole idea of forgiveness and asking for forgiveness, and even the sinner can be redeemed.
And who is God? God is Father.
Right.
There's a lot of, George Lucas, I think he gets a little bit too much credit for this, but he did do research into the hero with 1,000 faces and like the hero's journey and stuff like that. Basically, archetypical like story foundations that last throughout, like time and space, right? Like these are timeless story structures that resonate with all human beings, no matter what era in which they watch. And that's one of the reasons why Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back are such timeless films. But the idea that modern Star Wars just shucks these aside and says they're all wrong, this foundation is not the foundation we want to build our franchise on, and they go in such an opposite direction where it's all about killing the masculinity, killing the father figure, moving away from everything that made the original franchise great, and trying to rebuild it in the image of radical feminism and DEI and all this other stuff. And it just keeps getting progressively worse with each new series they put out.
You know what? I was talking about this recently. Exactly what you're saying is, historically, traditionally, when I was a kid, yes, they would have things like the strong girl and the weak guy, right? But the writers, you understood that the people writing this and the people making this film recognized that was unusual. That was the whole concept, right? Like you could create a red sky, but there has to be a reason for the red sky, right? Maybe you're on an alien planet, or maybe like Highlander 2 destroyed the atmosphere, or like what was that the Matrix, right? They destroyed the atmosphere, so the sky is like kind of weird. But if you create a red sky in a movie, and you just treat it as if the sky is red and everybody knows the sky is red and that's just how it is, the audience is going to be a little bit confused. They're going to be a little bit lost because the sky isn't red. The sky is blue.
Yeah, you gotta have an explanation for these things. I hate that. You're exactly right.
Recognize that it's a deviation from reality.
Some kind of one-off. Show us why something is the way it is when it's completely out of the ordinary.
It's a denial.
Feminists, these neo-Marxists, the ideas that they have that they're trying to put in these films, is they're trying to cram fictional ideas into people's brains by pretending that it's normal. But none of these ideas are normal. Like, women aren't as strong as men physically, like true. Stuff like, you know what I mean? Like they're constantly trying to tell us, like, preach to us these things.
They have a hard time holstering their gun.
Yeah, because they can't recognize objective truth, and that's why
they have
to overturn the entire moral structure, because it can't have good and evil, because to have good and evil would imply that there is an objective good, that there is an objective evil, and they can't have that. And so they
what
subject
Odin
us to
is
this
talking
moral
about.
relativism.
What Odin is talking about is this concept where I will say the people on the left typically, but just a lot of people in academia as well, they've just rejected this traditional concept of you can have an objective truth, you can have objective reality. They go, oh, Dutch Butters, his perspective is different than Brian's perspective, is different than Kadish's perspective, is different than Odin's perspective, is different than my perspective. So since we have 5 different perspectives, there are actually 5 different truths. Well, no, there is an objective truth, you morons.
Yep.
It's just that none of us maybe know it, or maybe one of us does know it. But the
So-
other
You want a deep cut on this? You want a real
What's that?
deep cut on this? So
Yeah,
this idea, you can go back all the way to ancient Greece. Okay, there was a man named Protagoras. He was what was called a sophist, and and Protagoras' main idea, his main tenet was, man is the measure of all things. I am the measure of myself. You have your truth. I have my truth. Amazing, ancient Greece. And you want to know who he was up against at that time? His name was Socrates. You want to know why Athens fell? Because of people like Protagoras, because of the denial of objective truth.
Right. Because
And,
there's obviously objective truth is obviously a real thing, and we should all strive to know what objective truth is. Once you say there's no objective truth, what happens? Authoritarianism. Why? Because you say you cannot believe your own eyes or your own vision, because that's just your unique perspective. Maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. But my truth is better than what you perceive to be true, and therefore just listen to me. And people kind of get this cultist mentality where they just listen to the person that's speaking. And this is a way to control people, I feel like.
Well, guys, there are 2 more things about this finale that I wanted to kind of get your opinion on but before we move on. The first one is the they-them beaver person suddenly sabotaging Soul's ship for no good reason. I wanted to hear what you thought about that. And the second thing was, why couldn't May and Osha just leave the planet together? Like, why did they have to mind wipe May and leave her for the Jedi? Like, that to me made no sense. So I want to get your guys' take on that before we move on.
The non-binary beaver is potentially one of the most annoying characters ever to be written. I mean, you think about how previous to this moment, most people, if asked who is the most annoying character in, let's say,
Jar Jar,
let's say actual Star Wars and not Disney Star Wars, because we could go a whole list of those characters, but it would be Jar Jar, right? But you think about what Jar Jar did, and it's like, as annoying as he was, at least he had a purpose, and at least, ultimately, you could easily argue he's a war hero. With this beaver, what do you got? I mean, honestly.
Non-binary beaver.
Non-binary beaver.
I'm gonna get that action figure. I'm gonna do it.
100%.
With replaceable private parts. Order yours today.
Yeah, never thought I would see a non-binary beaver in my lifetime.
Let's just check that off the bingo card.
Beaver Man.
2024 is a wild year.
We're all like, all I remember was watching the show and go, what is that thing? Why is that thing even here? What is its purpose? It's like I don't know, man. Non-binary beaver. So when you started calling, that's the first time I've heard it called that. So I'm just
That's great.
I'm laughing. Man.
I am now a fan of that, Odin. Thank you very much. I will be getting that action figure.
I'm gonna wait for it to be $1.50 on
Can't
Amazon,
wait.
and I'm gonna put it right next to my.
And it won't take long, Bader. A couple
No.
weeks from now, it'll be on the clearance bin.
That's it.
Right next to your Rostico.
Right
And
next to my-
and leaving May behind when they could have just like left with her and have her keep her memory. Like, any thoughts on that?
No. I got no thoughts.
What was that
on
again? Sorry.
Something about
my brain
May.
just died for a second thinking about the show.
All I can think about now is non-binary beavers. That's
Yeah.
all.
I'm thinking about my my action figure collection. I'm gonna buy 2.
I'm gonna get a Rose
two-
Tico too.
No. I got a Rose Tico. I'm gonna get 2 Mays, right? And I'm just gonna put a gunny sack on one, and then they'll both be.
But say
different.
they both go back and forth within their costumes. So other than the little mark on, May's head, there's no difference.
Did you guys notice in this show how unattractive the outfits that they put on all the women were?
Oh yeah,
They were
yeah,
they were all gunny sacks with these. This made them look like kind of like walking potato shapes.
Everyone is so
You-
unattractive in this show. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Why is everyone? And that's most Hollywood shows nowadays. Everyone's so goddamn unattractive. It's crazy.
I have to say, the actress that did the May and Osha, she put out that cringy rap video, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of hot. She is kind of hot. Yeah, she's a good looking girl, and they completely covered that up during the show. You can't tell.
Yeah, you can't tell.
You know what I mean? It's weird. It's just very strange why they would not want to to do that.
It wasn't made for you.
I guess not. Just purposely.
It wasn't made
fucking
for you. It
people
was
up.
made for non-binary beavers.
Yeah, non-binary beavers. But whatever.
Non-binary beavers.
Oh, I guess we're about done talking about Star Wars. So Tom
Are
decides
we?
to shut the fuck up. You know.
But before we bring Tom on, just want to give everyone a notification that at the end of the stream, we'll be sending you over to the Real McCoy podcast by Mephisto's Movie Reviews. So if you want to watch something after Salty Saturday is over, just stay tuned because we're going to be sending you over there. And we also got 2 super chats I want to get to. The first is from Da Beast 808 for $2. Aloha and blessings, salty nerds. Yes, aloha and blessings to you as well.
Aloha, sir.
Aloha.
And we got Brian G for $20. In defense of Brian from the Popcast, if he is really as cheap as he looks and sounds, why does he hate the Acolyte? That show is cheaper than this super chat.
Bro, you keep making me making people hate me on this show. It's crazy. People are literally giving, and you're like the third person now, Brian G, that gives super chats just to insult me. At this point, I don't know what's going on.
That's not our fault, Brian. That's your fault.
What I do?
I don't know
When
what
you're a
you do.
shield, when you're a shield to all.
When
things
you're a
woke.
shield, yeah.
That's right. From now on, I am the non-binary beaver of the group.
Non-binary.
Non-binary beaver. Yes.
The beard kind of looks a little non-binary beavery, actually.
Yeah.
little bit.
Look at that.
A little bit. All right. Speaking of beavery, let's welcome Tom Connors Jr. to the stage.
I like turtles.
I like turtles. How you doing, Tom?
What do beavers have to do with turtles?
Non-binary beavers.
They're not-
Progression of conversation.
Binary?
Yes. All right, guys. So we talked a little bit about Trump's assassination at the beginning of the show. So let's talk about some of the fallout for that, especially when it comes to Tenacious D and basically them calling off their tour for some incendiary too soon comments. So basically, Jack Black and his band Tenacious D were in Australia doing a concert, and it was his bandmate's Kyle Gass's birthday, and so he presented him a birthday cake on stage, and he was like, "What do you wish for your birthday?" And Kyle Gass basically said, "For them not to miss Trump next time," implying that he wanted someone to actually assassinate former President Trump. And this caused a huge blowback, where basically Kyle Gass was dropped by his talent agency, his management agency. Jack Black had to make a public apology and basically cancel the rest of the tour. And there's actually a really interesting kind of like Twitter thread on this where this guy, Educated Hillbilly, by the way, link to all these stories in the description if you guys want to dive deeper into them. He basically talked about how the real reason for canceling the tour, it's not because they were sorry of what they said. It's because it created such an incendiary reaction that the security cost and insurance for all the future venues in the tour went sky high. And so basically the touring venues.
I believe Deadline actually confirmed this, or something like that.
So the
That's
touring.
wild.
The touring venues are basically like, okay, if you want to perform here, you now have to pay X amount of dollars more than what we agreed upon because of increased security and insurance. And basically the company managing the Tenacious D tour was like, that's too expensive. We can't do it. And so Jack Black has basically suspended the tour because of these security and insurance concerns, not because he's actually sorry about what his bandmates said. But there does seem to be some blowback from onto Kyle Gass, where he issued another apology. But what's funny about Kyle Gass is he's nobody. Nobody really cares about him. Like if he wasn't attached at the hip to Jack Black, he wouldn't have a career, right? Like he's a 65-year-old rocker and comedian who has never done anything of note outside of Tenacious D.
And he looks every year of that age, by the way.
Yeah. So I wanted to throw this to the panel. Tom Connors Jr., since you have just joined us specifically to talk about stuff that's not the Acolyte, what's your take on Tenacious D basically getting
Notice
canceled
Tom
because of this?
came in as we ended the Acolyte.
Yeah.
I actually
that
thought
was on
maybe I
purpose.
missed this convo, but I meant to come in last half of the hour because hopefully you get all the Acolyte shit out of the way. No, like what you said, Matt, is Jack didn't have some sudden change of heart.
No.
He doesn't suddenly feel bad. He laughed and clapped along with everybody else on stage. There's plenty of videos out there of it. This is purely reactionary because, and the big thing from what you're talking about, I guess, it's called mass casualty insurance. Now, the reason they have to carry this, if you remember, in more recent years, we had like, events in like Las Vegas where you had the shooter, and you had the situation like with Whitesnake where they had a bunch of people get killed because of that fire, because the place wasn't up to code for what they were doing. So because of that, they have to carry this insurance. And like you said, extra security now because of the stupid things he said. So like I've seen a lot of people going out and saying, well, we should just forgive them. This is not the kind of thing that the conservatives are all about, right? They're not about cancel culture. It's like, well, nobody's really canceling Tenacious TDS, right? I mean, yes, some people have given them blowback, but ain't nobody going out there saying, cancel them, cancel them. No, they got deported from Australia for doing this. So think about this for a minute. They did this on a stage in another country.
Mhm.
Okay. So there's a lot of people even comparing it to the Dixie Chicks thing, right? It's like, well, all that was a bunch of radio stations decided to quit playing their music. That's up, yeah, I didn't agree with it at the time, but if you're a country station and you got somebody up there griping about George Bush, of course they're going to turn against you. It's like, duh, and it's the same kind of thing here. And I've seen some people even say, well, they're comedic band. And yes, I've followed Tenacious D since before Jack Black was anybody.
Yeah,
right. I've been one of the biggest fans of theirs forever. As far as I was concerned, I was a gateway nerd for Tenacious D and stuff. Like I was the guy that showed you their stuff, right? So that being said, like I love them, but people have even tried to say, well, they've always been comedy. They always make fun of this stuff. I'm like, yeah, but they've never been political, right? Their humor's always been stoner boy humor, right? That's basically all it is. It's nothing more than that. And for them to do this on stage like that, it was a consequence of that now is that they basically priced themselves out of the market, right? Because Tenacious D is not Metallica, right? They're not some big ass band. They have a niche following. And the only reason anybody knows who they are really outside of the smaller level is because of Jack Black. And Jack Black has a brand that he has to protect right now. And I'm sure a lot come about because of this, that also not just because of the tour part of it, but I mean, he's going to be in that Minecraft movie. I've seen some stuff leak out about that. He's got other stuff coming up here. He's doing voices for movies and stuff all the time. The Super Mario's. Exactly. He's got a brand to protect right now. And I think you said it best, Matt. Like, nobody gives a crap about Kyle Gass. Kyle Gass is nobody really in the grand scheme of things. And that's why he got dumped by his agency. Because as soon as Jack said, that's it, the tour is over, well, then his agency's like, well, then we have no money coming in for you. We have no use to keep you. It had probably nothing to do with
Jack
what he
Black's
said.
friend.
Exactly. You're Jack Black's friend. And you're right. Nobody said they had to cancel the tour in the US because they were even actually going to be up around my neck of the woods in October and I was planning on going. But that's probably why they had to cancel it, is because of the insurance. It makes absolute sense because if they can't afford this insurance and you can't sell enough tickets to cover what their costs are, Kyle just basically cost the entire band, the crew of the tour, their entire probably their Christmas nut, I would imagine. Because for Jack Black, this is probably a nice little fat payday for him at the end of the year when he does these tours. But like now it just costs them even more than just money. It's
Tom, I want to throw this to Mr. Reagan because Mr. Reagan, there's been a lot of kind of back and forth on this where like you have the lefties saying like, oh, you either have to be for cancer culture or entirely against it. So it's not fair when you do to us what we constantly do to you. Both sides are at fault. Both sides do this. Like both sides need to tone down the rhetoric. And I always hate the both sides argument because it's so one-sided. It's like, like we're allowed to do it and get away with it. But then when you start doing it, both sides need to calm down. And basically Jack Black had just come out like a week before in endorsing Biden along with like Clooney and Julia Roberts and Jimmy Kimmel at that, fundraiser thing that they did in LA for Biden, where Obama led Biden off the stage because he just kind of froze up there. And so like, I want to get your take on like, why do you think it's okay for one side to cancel people for something they said like 10 years ago, but saying that he wanted someone to assassinate Trump a day or two after like it actually happened is a step too far to cancel someone for the left?
Yeah, I don't know if that's really like a big argument right now. Certainly that is a thing that people talk about, should we be engaged in the same stuff? Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there certain kinds of things that people say, certain kind of actions need to have consequences. Obviously, in the case of a lot of conservatives that get canceled, a lot of times it's just a difference of opinion. Right? Like people are getting canceled, like their bank accounts canceled because they'll say something like multiculturalism isn't necessarily a good thing.
Or I don't want,
and they'll be like, oh, that's,
or I don't want a man in the bathroom with my daughter, right? Or, just have a pro-Trump.
Yeah. Logical reasons they're being canceled.
Yeah, and nobody's being hurt, but yet they're doing it. This is, and then they like to cry, oh, but it's consequence culture, not cancel culture. Well, this is actual consequences that are happening here. That was my point.
Yeah. This is, I think, the distinction. And Tom's exactly right. We're not really canceling them. I don't think in this particular instance anyone came out and was like, Jack Black has to be canceled. He can't go on tour ever again. No, I don't actually know if people care about this that much. I think people thought it was a very ugly joke. At the end of the day, it's a joke. I mean, okay, look, I'm probably about the biggest Trump supporter there is, on my show. I talk about Trump all the time, and
I couldn't tell, man. Oh man.
At the end of the day, though, I mean, we share very similar politics, Trump and I, and I've met the man, good man, gentleman. And look, I don't care about that joke personally, but I'm big on jokes. Like, to me, a joke is meant to make people laugh, make people smile, make people's day a little bit better. So if a joke is a bit offensive, then fine. If Trump had died, I doubt he would have made that joke. Trump lived. I don't think that joke was that big of a deal. But here's the reason I think that people are offended by that joke and upset by it. Those guys don't like Trump, right? Mm-hmm. If I make a joke about Trump, people will be like, I think people presumably will be kind of okay with it because they know I love Trump, right? So if I say something that's a bit like a joke about, the assassination attempt, people know that it's being made with like a positive intention. I like Trump. I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm not trying to be a dick, But with these guys, we think maybe there's like a, at least to some degree, at the core of the joke, there's something a little bit vile there. There's something a little bit vicious.
And I don't know if it's so much that, it was just that, how would they react if somebody said that about Biden?
Right.
Yeah. I'm not even sure how much of a joke it was. It didn't seem more less of a joke and more of just like a statement of
exactly. It
vitriol.
seems nasty.
Yeah. I mean,
it seems like a nasty thing, a nasty, ugly thing to say. If it was actually funny, then I think people would be kind of okay with it.
It wasn't a scripted thing. It's just something that he came up with on the.
And Script Doctor actually had a good way for them to get out of it, and that's kind of where it goes on to Jack Black, because Script Doctor said, if Jack was smart and he was actually good at improvising like he pretends to be, he would have said, but Kyle, if you tell us what your wish is, it won't come true. And then that sets you up to do the whole, aw, shucks darn thing, and it's like...
Right, yeah, I mean...
And then that would have been a joke!
Really, at the end of the day, it was a really dumb thing for him to say. I think that's kind of the bottom line, is like when tragedy strikes or when something nasty happens, something that's quite serious, like an assassination attempt, I think people, tend to take that pretty seriously. And for somebody to crack a joke that's a bit offensive like this, I think people go, what the hell are you thinking? And there is like a consequence to it and that sort of thing. So this is just sort of the thing naturally playing out as it does. But it was just a really dumb thing for that guy to say. Like you guys said, this guy's a nobody, and he's just hanging on to the coat strings of Jack Black for as long as he can. And I think he just really messed it up for himself.
Well, not just for himself though, but for the Tom, like what Tom said, the entire crew. A lot of normal people work on that tour, and they're out of jobs now. That's like their Christmas is gonna suck, and that's a bummer, man.
Well, Brian, since you want to chime in on this, what was your take on this? Do you think that this is indeed cancel culture in action?
Yeah. So I don't believe in. I don't like cancel culture. I don't think anyone should be canceled or fired or removed for what they say. I'm a staunch believer in freedom of speech. I believe good ideas should be heard, and I believe bad ideas should be heard. I believe that bad ideas die in the sunlight, and so let everyone speak, 100%. I love the fact that Elon bought Twitter, X, whatever, and now it's the free speech platform, because people can share their bad ideas, but then also people can share their good ideas, and the Overton window can be shifted in a positive direction. The pendulum can swing the right way. That's the great thing about freedom of speech, is that the good ideas are heard and the bad ideas are rooted out. Bad ideas are like moths, like mold. You hide it away, and it just grows and festers and becomes, gross. So I don't believe in cancel culture. I don't believe anyone should be canceled for what they say on the internet. In fact, a lot of people say stupid things on the internet.
It's a little bit weird, this idea that they need all this insurance now because they're afraid of some kind of like retaliatory strike.
Right. Yeah, because that's what Trump supporters do, right?
Yeah. I know.
Trump supporters go out and protest and cause billions of dollars in damage every time they're slightly offended. Right. That's
what I loved about all the shit they were saying the other night. I was like, yeah, I missed all the mostly fiery but peaceful protests Saturday night.
It's so crazy, bro. No, you know what happened is the icon of the Trump movement, Trump himself, was shot in the ear. Right, he was shot at. They attempted to kill him. He got up, and everyone stayed there and chanted "USA, USA." No one went to the streets with torches and started blowing up buildings and killing cops.
And he said, fight, fight, fight. That's what makes it even more rich, because he says fight, 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 and yet no one actually goes out into the streets and does physical things, which tears an entire hole in the narrative that they're trying to push.
Because everyone understands what that means, not fight physically.
Yep.
Come on, bro.
Did you guys see CNN's headline where it's like Trump falls down at rally? And I was fully expecting them to say Trump survives mostly peaceful assassination attempt.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, it's because Trump supporters and the right and conservatives, they tend to be, at least to some degree, a little bit commonsensical, right?
They also have jobs. We don't got time to go protest and riot. Get out of here. We got two jobs, a kid. I got things to do.
Absolutely true. But we also kind of understand what is a serious thing and what's kind of like a ridiculous thing. And we recognized instantly that Trump has just become this mythical figure. Trump has just become a legend. Right. This shooter,
it really pisses
nasty,
them off.
It really does.
Yeah, exactly. As nasty and evil as the shooter's intention was, he sort of inadvertently won Trump the election, probably. So, we all recognize that instantly, and we're not like, oh, let's go burn down a Wendy's. We're like, no, let's go to the Republican National Convention and celebrate the fact
let's go celebrate with champagne. No, you know what's funny? This is one of those moments, like in the time travel movie where they're trying to like change an event, where this will be like the moment that you have to stop, because this is where everything changes. Like, not because it was effective. No, we need to stop the shooter from trying as Democrats, because this is going to change the world. This is that moment in history. It's crazy about going back to cancel culture really quick. I'll let you go. This is the problem with canceling people over what they have to say. Then you'll never get to hear their bad ideas. Like, let them make stupid ideas so we can cancel them with our wallets. So we can cancel them with our support. Look, if I really hated what Kyle had to say, which, by the way, I literally learned his name like 2 days ago. I didn't even know what his name was. I think he was just Jack Black's weird friend. But if I was really offended by what he had to say, I would just stop supporting him.
Yeah.
Like, that's the best way to cancel someone,
Real quick, I want to thank Culture Casino for the raid. Welcome all Culture Casino viewers to the Salty Saturday podcast.
Culture!
And I'm going to throw this to Dutch Butters. Mr. Butters, what do you think of the fallout over Tenacious D's incendiary comments on stage?
I feel like I just got picked on the Hollywood Squares.
I loved your reaction.
Hello.
I've never seen Hollywood Squares. Is it good?
Well, yeah,
it is.
You got to watch the old ones.
Believe it or not, I used to watch them when I was a little kid live, because in the 80s it was still a thing, right? So
yeah,
Yep.
I used to actually watch it.
What, in the 80s you were a kid?
How I learned about
young,
gay
man.
people.
Yeah.
I was born in 1979, believe it or not.
Because Paul Lynn is flaming as hell.
Paul Lynn was funny as hell too. He was absolutely
Very
hysterical
funny.
on that
Very
show.
funny.
Funny guy.
One of my favorite stories about Paul Lynn is he crashed into a mall, I think it was, like into like this thing, and the cop comes up and knocks on his window, and he rolls it down the window, and he goes, "Yes, I'll have a hamburger with cheese and a large fries."
That's funny.
Yeah, he's a funny dude. I have always been one of these guys. I try to separate the art from the artist. every election season that gets harder and harder to do because these people just can't keep their mouths shut. You know, and if they could go up there and perform and have a good time, entertain, and just do what they're supposed to do, everything would be fine. But they always got to go up there and spout off or say something and just ruin the experience for everybody. I am kind of upset that Kyle said that, because I have, like Tom, I have been a long time fan of Jack Black and a fan of Tenacious D. I like the music. It's fun. It's metal. You know, it's good, entertaining stuff. And
Greatest song in the world, bro.
It's kind of like
song.
stoner frat boy humor, like I said. It's
But
you got
now,
the fun joke, like, you know, the cock push-ups.
Right, exactly.
You can only do one.
I was kind of hoping we were going to get to review the Pick of Destiny someday on the Salty Nerd Show, but I don't think I want to now, you know, because it's just it's kind of lame. But it would be the perfect kind of movie for us to watch. But yeah, it's I'm just sad at the whole situation because you know they basically Kathy Griffin themselves. That bitch still can't sell a ticket after 6 years or so ago, after she held up the bloody Trump stump head. You know,
hold on, was she selling tickets before that?
Well, she just tried to do a tour like this year and couldn't sell any tickets.
I thought I didn't
canceled
know she was
the
still
tour.
alive.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of big people
you know,
canceling their shit this year.
I mean, they're self-canceling themselves.
This is going to ruin the tour.
But
yeah, I mean, that's the other thing too, right? Like, sorry,
no, good.
Man, guys, the point is like, yeah, Jack is the one that canceled the tour for all intent and purposes, right? Like, so at the end of the day, who's canceling who? Jack,
right?
That's who's doing it. But yeah, anyway, continue. Sorry.
No, I mean, I don't really have a whole lot more to add. I just, you know, the whole thing makes me sad, and you know, these people just need to learn to entertain. You know, it's just. It is what it is, man. I don't like it. But
you know, Odin,
it's an election year, and these people need to understand that people are going to be very sensitive about this kind of stuff, especially especially this year, because for some reason Trump gets everybody all riled up.
It does.
You know, Odin, we've noticed in the days since the assassination attempt that more and more kind of like celebrities or like hardcore lefties are kind of coming around to the idea that maybe Trump isn't so bad. Like, you had Mark Zuckerberg come out there and say it was really badass to see Trump get up and pump his fist in the air.
So it's the most badass moment he's ever seen.
It is.
And you might be seeing, like, with a lot of these backlashes against people who are like, oh, like, I wish the assassin's bullet hadn't missed, or like whatever. I'm beginning to wonder if a lot of the Hollywood people are like, oh, it's no longer cool to hate on Trump, so we're going to kind of ride this bandwagon and be like, oh, like, you know, Trump's not such a bad guy. And we've seen a couple of celebrities, like Hulk Hogan famously, you know, came out at the Republican National Convention and he was like, I tried to keep my mouth shut, but I just couldn't do it anymore after they tried to literally kill this guy. And so, like, we might be seeing more celebrities kind of like, you know, shift away from like the Democrat talking points of like Hillary and Biden and stuff like that, and be at least neutral, but maybe even like slightly in favor of Trump. What do you think of this shift that we're starting to see?
It is interesting to see, because I don't think we've ever really had this in our country, because you think back to the last two elections and there's always been even division on the right. And you just haven't seen that this time around. It's kind of this, you know, amazing thing. And I think that, you know, there's obviously a couple things you can look to. You could talk about party unity, but you could also look to it as everyone who is got TDS has officially now just been completely like just pushed out of like the mainstream, you know, political machinations. But I guess going back to the concept here of kind of what started all this about with Tenacious D, I'll first say that as someone who actually did know the name Kyle Gass long before this, having not only seen the Pick of Destiny, not only having, you know, listened to and followed, I would never say that I'm like a Tenacious D fan, but I've known about them since I was a kid because my older brother listened to them because he learned it from his high school friends, and so I picked it up from him because I'm just a few years younger than him. So I've known about him for a long time, and so Pick of Destiny, you know, picked that one up right away. But also sometimes people forget, you know, Kyle Gass is in Elf. He is one of the writers that is there to try to help get that last story the storyboard together, if you remember that scene. And then he finds Miles Finch's journal, right? And he's funny. Like, and that's the thing is I've always thought myself to be able to separate art from the artist. That's why I can go back to old school Star Wars, even though Mark Hamill is a complete tool, and still enjoy those movies and still even enjoy the character of Luke Skywalker, you know? And but I also recognize how difficult it is for so many people to do that. But with the whole concept now being brought up about, you know, are we doing cancel culture, whatever it might be, here's the problem with that, all right? It's cancel culture to say your specific views that really don't impact anybody, right, should get you fired, versus you've just now called for another attempt on the life of an individual person, all right? To have that be exposed is not cancel culture. That's saying, hey, this person is calling for violence. That is not okay. Because even in our own laws, right, we talk about freedom of speech. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom of consequence. Because you can say certain things, and if you cause violence, if you are calling for violence, I, again, personally don't think that necessarily should be protected. And I think that you see that there's oftentimes clear examples where it's not protected, right? If you're the person who's just pointing at some random person and, you know, you have this mob in front of you and say, attack, 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 guess what? You have a responsibility in that action. And so, but also the comparisons that people are making to say that this is quote unquote cancel culture and similar to people literally being fired just because they support a specific political candidate is just wild to me. That people actually think that. But then you look back to the TDS and you see how broken these people's minds are, right? Like, and that's why you're seeing the reactions. They have to deny it. They have to deny that this is a real attempt on his life, because everything that their mind, you know, is that cognitive dissonance, right? Everything that they are seeing goes against everything that they have held onto and believed for the last several years. And because they cannot coincide the two, their only options are to either accept the reality that's always been there, or to go further and further into their own demented minds and reject reality outright.
All right. Well, real quick, guys, we got a members chat from Gary Banjo Sandwich Worthington. Member for 5 months. It was the greatest blunder in the world. 1 and 1 make 2. R.I.P. to you, Kyle.
Well, there was even one of the songs that said they'll always be friends as long as there's a record deal.
And he wanted you to sing that. So it was
Well,
the greatest
I don't know the song.
world. 1 and 1 make 2. There you go.
All right. Thank you for doing that, Odin, because I wouldn't have been able to. I'm not a singer. And from Marks47 for $2, Nick 6 wants to help you fund your D+ accounts. We appreciate everything Nick 6 has contributed to the chat. R.I.P. Nick 6. We shall miss you.
Listen, Pirate Bay funds my D+ account, so.
Yes, indeed. All right, guys. You know, speaking of accounts that we're going to be funding, let's talk a little bit about Marvel and how they're bringing the Russos back to save their sinking ship. So apparently the Russo brothers, who ever since Infinity War and Endgame have gone on to waste a lot of Netflix's and Amazon's money, are now being courted back to come in and shepherd the next 2 Avengers films. And I'm kind of wondering about this because, you know, they are somewhat talented, but at the same time, they haven't really been knocking it out of the park since they left Marvel. So I'm just wondering, Brian, since you are one of our experts on the comic book movie industry on the panel, what you think about bringing the Russos back for Avengers 5 and 6.
Break glass in case of emergency. That's what this is. Like, look, Deadpool is going to be hyper successful, but that doesn't mean that it's going to bring people back into the Marvel, and it's going to bring Marvel back into profitable, zeitgeist. So you know what? The best way to do that is to bring back the guys who created probably the best comic book trilogy of all time, and ended one of the most epic phases of movies I've ever seen in my life. Like Endgame, the way they ended that was just so brilliant. So yeah, bring back the guys that did that. Makes complete sense. And maybe
Disagree. I disagree.
I'm sorry, Endgame was wonderful, Mr. Reagan.
No, we have to fight about this, but keep talking.
All right. So bring back the guys that made it all happen. And hopefully Deadpool gets the general public back into the, brings Marvel back into their a positive frame of mind. and then maybe the Russo brothers can reboot the machine because they've been failing for so long. Now, Deadpool canonically is not going to really have much to do with MCU proper, you know, so it's not really going to matter canonically. But for in the minds of fans, I think they'll be like, oh well, you know, Marvel's back. All right, now we got Russo brothers making a movie. You know, great, break glass.
Well, Mr. Reagan, you obviously have a lot to say. So, how do you retort to Mr. Popcast?
The biggest mistake that Marvel made in the past few years is their sort of getting rid of James Gunn.
Ding, ding,
They
ding.
really should have taken James Gunn and kind of given him the Marvel universe and stop
agree with
trying to gender swap everybody and race swap everybody and all that. They went so heavy into the DEI BS pit of despair that they just absolutely destroyed Marvel entirely. That's why they have to do this break glass emergency Russo brothers thing, which I do agree with Brian that they're doing that. The reason I say I don't really like Endgame is just because the time travel stuff was so convoluted. To me, it was like a confusing movie, and I was just like, why are they doing it this way? Like, make it simple. Why are they doing this? It was so hard to follow. I don't even really remember what happened in that movie.
But the Thanos arc was so good, man. Like, it's crazy how they took this character that they started off as this guy is just pure evil, and they morphed him into someone who actually thought he was doing the right thing by the universe. I just thought it was a great character.
No. I agree with that part of it. Look, the Thanos character was great. I liked his arc. I liked his story. But they did the Lost thing, right? They did the thing that they did the TV
That's
show
true.
Lost,
Yeah.
where they were like they wrote themselves into a corner, and they're like, "Oh, we'll figure out how to get out of it later." And then they're
We
like,
just need
well,
to use time
shit.
travel. Right. I get it.
Yeah. Well, I don't really know how to do this now.
Not only
So they
that, it
just
was some
wrote this
convoluted time travel. Yeah.
It was terrible. So I don't know. I wasn't the biggest fan of that film. You know, they defeated Thanos. They brought everybody back. They had their little, oh, these are all the chicks in the MCU. Everybody can cheer for them moment. And
Girls get it done.
Yeah.
But you're 100% right, because the last thing that James Gunn worked on until Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was the first part of Endgame, and that was the Guardians bit. Otherwise, he said he flat out had to sit down and map out the entire Infinity Saga because they had no plan. And he needed to know where
I
things
didn't actually
were
even
going.
know that. Yeah.
Yeah, he said because they had no idea where things were going, and he needed to know what was going on with Thanos to be able to tell his Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, because Thanos was such a big part of it. So he sat down, he said he took about 90 minutes, and he literally mapped out the entire Infinity Saga. So basically, Guardians of the Galaxy
That's
1,
a
2,
good
and
writer.
3, and the Infinity
Right.
War, basically.
That's awesome.
So basically,
yeah.
when he got kicked, you're right, is when Endgame kind of got all convoluted and messed up. And I think there's two different versions of that movie, and I still stand by that, because there's more than enough proof that there was the Captain Marvel cut that we've talked about, and there's a video game that came out right around the same time where it wasn't Captain Marvel that saved Tony in space, it was Rocket Raccoon, because he
Right.
wanted his goddamn shit back. Which makes more sense, right?
It makes way
It's like,
more
I'm
sense.
going to get
yeah.
my ship.
That's
You know,
so funny.
So,
That's great.
so yeah, and so like maybe that was in the original cut and they changed that. But anyhow, that being said, I agree with you wholeheartedly, because I don't know how this DC thing is going to go. I don't know if he's going to work well with DC. I was rooting for him. I'm going to hold my breath a little bit until I see the trailer before I get too excited one way or another. But yeah, no, and I think you're right. The Russos coming back is a great optic thing, but unless they got the writers to go along with it, and Script Doctor brought that up too, unless they bring back all those old writers, because that's not who they've been using lately. They've been using like the same 3 writers who've written all the crap we hate from the last few years. It's still the same people.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they got to
And
change
James
that.
James Gunn never did, as far as I can I can't think of a moment when I thought, oh, this is a DEI thing. You know what I mean? Like, he used a multiracial cast and this kind of thing, but not because it was a multiracial cast. You know,
Yeah,
I
it's-
never felt like that was why he was doing
It's never
it.
because of DEI. It's always to tell a good story.
It's
I'm
always-
sorry. I'll die on this sword. Peacemaker is a brilliant series. It's
Yeah, I like
brilliant.
It is actually it's a brilliant series. And you look at, what is it, Gamora? Who's the green
Green chick, Gamora. Yeah.
Why Gamora?
Why Gamora?
Why Gamora?
Well,
How Gamora?
she's- she's not white, right? She's a sort of like a woman of color, which is what the DEI people, they always love. Like they dream about these women for whatever reason.
She's green.
Yeah, she's. But the point is, nobody who hates all of this DI crap. Nobody hates her.
That.
Exactly. Okay.
Oh my
Oh,
God,
the
the green chick thing.
Shatner's in here.
No, I think Gamora's a great character. And I think that
Well, that's
actress
the
is great,
point.
too.
I got a thing for green
exactly.
bitches.
But the thing is, she wasn't written because she was a woman of color into that part, right? She was just a good character. She was just the right actress for that
Right.
part. Like that's how
Right.
it should be done. That's how all Hollywood stuff should be done. So that's why I love James Gunn, because he's not only a good writer, but he hasn't bought into all the DEI bullshit. He just makes great movies.
He just
I
makes
love
good
that.
movies, right?
Well, I want to throw this to Dutch Butters and get his take. Do you think bringing the Russos back is going to help Marvel kind of like
Well,
rebound?
Speaking as just a fair weather fan of all these movies, you look at what they made, and those are the movies that, for the most part, I enjoyed the most out of all the MCU movies. You know, Winter Soldier is a fantastic movie. To this day, I have no problem rewatching Winter Soldier now. The Civil War is another good one. They make good Avengers movies. They have a really good track record for the most part over there for us fair weather. I'm not going to say I'm a normie because I'm certainly not a normie, but it's enough. Them doing this, it's enough to pique my interest to where I might be more interested in buying some tickets. You know what I'm saying? Whereas before, I was completely out. I was like, I have no interest in any more superhero movies. I'm just done. I don't care. But them going back to the well here, bringing back some people that seem to like know what they're doing with these characters and in this world and universe. I think it's a smart move on Feige's part. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree.
I think they're gonna. Are they going to salvage anything? I don't know. It might be too late. I have no idea. But I think it's a good move as far as
if they do
as
Secret
the normies
Wars,
go.
if they do
Well, that's
Secret
what they're
Wars
doing.
and they tie it into Deadpool, that would be huge.
That's the second movie they're doing is Secret Wars. It's like Avengers
That's a big
5
deal. Yeah.
and Secret Wars.
You know what
So,
they need to do? They need to bring in some genuinely like open. Well, me really is what they need to do. They need to bring me in. But
You need to hire Mr. Reagan.
They do need to bring in Tom Cruise, indeed. Finish your thought, Chris, and then we got to throw it to Odin.
openly conservative writers. Bring in some openly conservative writers, some Trump supporters, some people who, because at the end of the day, I know that sounds completely crazy in Hollywood, but there are so many. I mean, like look at the Top Gun movie, right? They made. I mean, talk about Tom Cruise. Look at that movie, right? That was sort of like I don't want to say it was pandering to the conservative audience, but it wasn't trying to alienate them. And I think a lot of Hollywood does that. They are like, I think they're like intentionally putting the middle finger up to most Americans who they're like, oh, you're a racist misogynist. We're going to do stuff to just annoy you. You know, and it's like, really, do you want to make money or you want to be a dick? And I just think if you bring in actual conservatives and say, well, what do you think is going to help this movie out? It'll benefit.
I think Hollywood has proven they don't want to make money. So like time and time again. But Odin, you know, when it comes to like Marvel, the Russos haven't had the best track record since they left Marvel's. Like they did the Gray Man, they did Citadel. We've talked about all these things on the show before about how they just burn through money. They're kind of irresponsible producers. They don't really oversee stuff. They had to go back and reshoot Citadel. It ended up costing Amazon like $600 million in
Costs a
total.
lot of money. Although Priyanka Chopra looks amazing in that.
And basically everything the Russos have done since Endgame has kind of fallen flat. So do you think it's actually something where they could maybe like redeem themselves in addition to Marvel by coming back?
I mean, there's always that chance. Never say never, but I always typically go based off of, you know, total track record. So as much as I really like a film like Winter Soldier, as much as I really like a film like Infinity War, I really, really hate With a Fiery Passion Endgame. And I know there's still a lot of people out there that say they really enjoy it, and I'm not trying to take away anyone's subjective experience. The film is just not well put together. The storyline, the writing is not very good. And I think that when it comes down to it, I really then, because of their track record, because of especially what have you done for me lately, their last MCU film was Endgame. Everything they've done since Endgame has really not been all that great. I don't really think bringing them back is going to right the ship. And I've been saying this for a long time. The only way that MCU is going to get back on track is going to be if they actually just turn things around, turn everything over from like the top down, right? You got to get rid of these people who are at the top who clearly have lost sight of what people want. And I've mentioned this for a long time as far as the box office, that Deadpool Wolverine is fool's gold. Okay.
Sure.
It's going to make people think, oh man, Marvel is back. And it's like, no. This is Ryan Reynolds, like passion project. Right. He is, you look at him, you look at the director, you look at all of those creative minds in play. Marvel's there. They're just kind of like along for the ride. Yeah, you could say they had to greenlight things, sure, but I'm sorry, that's not coming. This movie is not coming from the MCU Marvel brain trust.
No, yeah, but normies are gonna think Marvel's back.
But even them, you guys, I don't think it's gonna. I don't think it's necessarily gonna lead to that, because even the normie audience can catch on to things. I think back especially to how you look at what happened with Spider-Man: No Way Home, massive money, massive movie, and then you had it carry over somewhat, right? The only reason why Multiverse of Madness made really anything, as far as just total box office, was because of its connection to that movie. But then what happened after that? Because that movie wasn't very good, and everything after, the box office continued to go down. And so you might see a bump, but what's the next MCU movie? Captain Falcon. I'm sorry, but I just don't see how this is going to help.
That's a bummer for them too. Like they're going to have like the normie rah, and then lead right into a horrible Falcon movie.
Yeah.
Can I just say, I like this Odin guy. I don't know. He's like a very smart guy. I endorse
because he agrees with you.
Fully.
Look at the big brain on Odin. All right, guys. There's two more stories I want to get to before we call it a weekend. The first one is that the Halo TV series has been canceled, mercifully by Paramount Plus. We on the Salty Nerd podcast, we covered each episode of season 1 in great detail. When season 2 came around, we were so over it and sick of Paramount's constant copyright striking that we just decided, screw it, we don't care anymore, we're not going to cover the show anymore. And we weren't alone. A lot of creators who were very excited about this show just got frustrated. They didn't amplify the show at all with like their coverage of it. And the show itself just got progressively worse. They kept taking Master Chief's helmet off. They kept not listening to the fans. And this was something that was like 10 years in the making, right? Like they've been trying to do a Halo adaptation for over a decade. And they finally do it and they fuck it up. They fuck it up really, really bad. So I just wanted to do a quick lightning round with the panel. What do you guys think of this news? Is this a good thing? Can Halo ever recover?
I think they have a fan base that they can recover if they do it correctly. They can probably make a movie or something and do fine with it. But this show was just, too much. I'm not a big fan of the Halo world. I didn't know really a whole lot about it. I never played the games. Just wasn't my thing. But everything that I've seen from like the diehard fans, like Salty was pissed from the get-go about what they did to this show. And so, to him, it's just another one of those shows that they ruined with their nonsense. Chalk it up there to Star Wars and Star Trek and Doctor Who, but put Halo right up there with the DEI woke bullshit. And it's sad. It's a sad thing. It's just another victim of modern current DEI politics. So that's
you know what, Mr. Butters, the whole thing about this is that it's the same problem that the Acolyte suffered from, which is basically you had some creatives who got this legendary property and they decided that their story, what they were going to shoehorn into this property, was more important than actually translating the story that everyone loved.
Exactly.
Right. It's happening with Star Wars. It's happening with Star Trek. It's this, Mr. Reagan, it's this mentality that the producers and writers in Hollywood know better than the fans.
Right.
And thus they're going to do what they want as opposed to what the fans want.
Yeah, this was an early one, wasn't it? I mean, this started, everybody is like, what are they doing with these characters? Why would they do this?
I was started from the first episode. So
yeah. But I mean, like, it was quite a while ago that they started this, because how long ago did this show originally air? I feel like this
it was just a few years ago. Yeah, they've only done
it was like 3 years ago.
Right. But I just remember thinking this was kind of a big deal because they kind of betrayed all the fans. Why would you betray the fans? That's what I like. To me, it's completely crazy. Why even do a remake of something that people love if you're just going to destroy it?
Yeah, but
Why
they
not
can,
just
you
do an
can,
original
you can say
project?
that about every single thing that's come out of Hollywood in the last decade.
Yeah.
Why would
They
you
just
do that
gonna
to
make
this
money.
thing? Yeah.
Yeah, so they're just ruining things to make money. I don't know. To me, it's just sick. I'm not a big fan of this thing. I'm not a big fan of Doctor Who, but I am sad when I see these things that people love destroyed. I mean, I empathize because I've seen it happen to Star Wars. I've seen it happen to Indiana Jones. I've seen it happen to all these other projects that I love. And so, yeah, I sympathize. I empathize, and
Dude,
yeah, it makes me sick.
The DEI Hollywood stuff reminds me of like shorting stocks, but they're shorting franchises.
Yep.
It's a very odd thing to witness. Like, you can make a lot more money if you do it,
But you don't
correctly.
make money on it. How do you make money?
I think you do. I think you make that sweet ESG money, dude. That sweet investment money. That's what I think you make. I don't think you're
like
making
a BlackRock investment,
right? Yeah, that's what you're making.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Well, speaking of making money off of stuff people hate, I want to talk a little bit about the Rebel Moon bonus content that's coming out in preparation for the director's cuts of the Rebel Moon movies. So there was this article on Collider.
I don't even.
Well, we're going to get into the overall story here in just a second, Mr. Reagan. But basically, Zack Snyder came out and announced that there's going to be a 6-part fictional podcast about the genesis of the Jimmies, who are like the robot soldiers that Anthony Hopkins played in the movies. It takes place 500 years before the start of the first Rebel Moon movie. It's supposedly about a mad king who has like his daughter is like the first incarnation of the Princess Ilsa, who has the healing power, and how like the robots were created and how they became protectors of the royal family and all this stuff that nobody actually cares about. But essentially, Zack Snyder has announced that he's doing a podcast, he's doing books, he's doing comic books, all based around a franchise that nobody really seems to care about. So he keeps trying to make Rebel Moon a thing, even though nobody wants it to be a thing. And this is leading up to the release of his 2 director's cuts of this, which are going to be longer and apparently completely different movies from what we've already gotten.
Listen, I know nothing about this, but let me just say this. This sounds to me like self-absorbed narcissism. That's what it sounds like. I just want to put that out there. I have nothing else to say.
Well, Mr. Reagan, this is basically Zack Snyder's version of Star Wars in his mind. And so like basically what he's doing with this upcoming 6-part fictional podcast, which is kind of going to be put together like a radio play, essentially, is he's trying to set the stage for his version of the movies instead of Netflix's version of the movies. So I just want to throw it out to the panel as our final story of the weekend. What do you guys think of this strategy where Zack Snyder keeps trying to make Rebel Moon a thing?
I've never the fall of Zack Snyder is hilarious to watch because like he is just so self-involved. He loves himself so much. The Rebel Moon thing didn't work. It didn't work. No one liked it. Most people didn't like it anyways. And now we're gonna get director's cuts and comic books, and you're trying too hard, man. Like just all right, it didn't work. Go back to the drawing board, make a different movie, start another franchise. And maybe he really loves his franchise and he wants it to work, but this is not the way to do it.
That's right. Odin, what do you think of this?
Honestly, I don't care. I'm in a debate right now with someone in the chat, so
it's more important. What about you, Tom? Do you think Rebel Moon is actually going to get any traction when the new movies come out?
No.
If that's the question, then no, it's not going to.
No, and my answer to all of this is just because I have hated Zack Snyder for so long, and to see him come crashing down like this is just hilarious.
Why have you hated Zack Snyder for so long?
Because he's such a pretentious asshole. He's like a perpetual 12-year-old who should never have been made a director. At best, he's a cinematographer, right? He does not know storytelling. He doesn't understand character. He just knows what's flashy and cool. And from I've not seen Rebel Moon, but from what I've heard of it and seen of it, It looks like somebody who saw Star Wars once and they decided to make their own version of it.
All right.
Only
That's
badass.
that's accurate.
You know, like, and I get it. He's got his fans, and the thing is his fans are so deranged when you do say anything negative about him. But that's the funny thing about Rebel Moon is even his fans couldn't quite come to the defense. Like even some of them were like, "Well, it's not his best work." And then if anybody said that, then the other fans would freak out and say, "Well, you're not really supporting Zach like you should be." So yeah, like there's just a bunch of like perpetual 12-year-olds who don't know how to really watch a movie, even at the end of the day, if you ask me. And I mean, I brought it up time and time again. Justice League is the first movie in history to lose movie twice. Prove me wrong. They spent more money on it the second time and it still lost money. So,
Well, Mr. Butters, what's your take on more Rebel Moon content? Do you think
he
anyone out
doesn't
there
understand what
actually
a
cares about
director's
this?
cut is either. That's not where you get to, shoot more shit after the fact. That's where you take the stuff that never got into the movie in the first place. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Reagan.
I just think it's weird that he's putting out podcasts and movies and books and games and special editions of all this kind of stuff for something that hasn't
He's
even
the Star Wars.
but it hasn't earned the status to be able to do all that stuff with. It's in reverse. It's like, hey man, I got an idea for a new YouTube show, but I haven't made one single episode yet. But Brian, I need to like get a whole line of merch set up and designed and set up ready to go. I want t-shirts, mugs, mouse pads, hats. I want all this kind of stuff. I need a new logo, but I'm only gonna put out one episode of this show to see if anybody likes it, and it's gonna be some lame ass shit that nobody cares about. So we're gonna do all of this stuff. It's just he's putting the cart before the horse. He's doing the extended universe first before we get the normal universe. It's insane. It's just weird and goofy, and
Yeah.
we already know that Judge, just by the first episodes that came out, that this whole thing's just a lame Star Wars ripoff, and it's gonna be bad. So I don't know, man. It's just more of the same from Zach. So
Yes, and the Snyder cult has definitely had its balls cut off because they're not quite as vicious as they used to be in defending him. But everyone, you've seen the power of many with this wonderful panel of nerds in this episode of Salty Saturday. Odin, if you can take a break from your flame war in the chat.
I will never.
Give us your final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
You can find me over at OMB Reviews on YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble, Twitter as well. And final thoughts, there are objective qualities of a film, and there are subjective qualities that you experience, and film therefore can be objectively bad, even if you subjectively enjoy it. This is a fact, and it's hard for me to understand how this is a difficult concept to understand. But anyway, love you guys.
Tom Connors Jr., The Power of One. Where can people find more of you?
The power of one, the power of two, the power of many. Scissor me,
copyright struck
timber,
now?
sexy space switch, let's
It's all
screw.
me.
Now you be the dom and I'll be the sub, let's switch. Scissoring all night long. This is the scissoring song. It's so tight being the acolyte. The force is not the force, it's dead. The force is now the thread. Thanks to lesbian space witches. Take that bitches.
There's more.
Yes.
I'm not going to bother you with it. Anyway, you can find me at Midnight's Edge, After Dark, all those fun places. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Reagan, aka Tom Cruise. I've heard some people call you that. Where can people find more of you, and do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with us?
I do have some final thoughts. You can follow me on Mr. Reagan on the YouTubes or Rumble, or Mr. Reagan USA on the Twitter, now known as X.
Don't forget Grindr.
Oh yeah, I'm a grinder, but yeah. Why'd you have to do that? Now I got to try to joke. Damn it! And I wasn't quick enough, and now I feel like I missed my opportunity. All right, it was funny. It was funny, Brian. Okay, good. But look. I did have a final thought, which is that, believe it or not, this is kind of a weird thing, but I think that maybe Trump getting shot may have given me some hope. Anyways, given me some hope that maybe Hollywood will change. That's like a really weird thing to say, but just think about what Mark Zuckerberg said, right? He was like, how Mark Zuckerberg who gave like a gazillion dollars to the Democrats last time. And he's like, I don't know. I thought that was kind of badass what Trump did. Like, that's a bold thing for Zuckerberg to be able to say,
Right.
considering that he goes to these cocktail parties with all these leftist, idiots. Well, in Hollywood, that's kind of how it is in Hollywood, right? Like, you've got all these leftist idiots that go to cocktail parties and they're afraid to say what they think. I mean, I used to go to secret Hollywood events, literally secret Hollywood events with actors and producers and writers and stuff where they would
Eyes wide shut.
Not like that. It was just like, believe it or not, we would meet at Barney's Beanery. I don't know if you guys, none of you guys are LA people. Katie,
I used to go to Friends of Abe meetings there.
yeah, Friends of Abe. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, you've got it. You've got it. It was Friends of Abe. Yeah, so I'd go to these Friends of Abe meetings, and then after that, Friends of Abe dispersed, and there was other. But anyway, there are a lot of people in Hollywood that are conservative, but they cannot talk about it. That's why we'd have these secret meetings, because you cannot talk about it. You will get blacklisted. You will get banned. Nobody will work with you. But now that Trump's been shot, I feel like there is this awakening where people are like, you know what? We kind of got to tone down the rhetoric. And it might be okay to be a little bit sympathetic to Donald Trump, because he is, after all, as much as we all hate him in Hollywood, he is a human being, and somebody did try to kill him.
Well,
He's going to be the next president. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe this will be a sea change even in Hollywood. We'll see. I don't know.
I hope so. I thought we were already headed there, so maybe this expedited it. But the fact that we still see the media that dehumanized him for 8 years constantly try to humanize the sick killer and still dehumanize Trump even more just makes me go, I don't know if that much is going to change, but we'll have to see. There has been some swinging going on, though.
The swing is right. The window is shifting for sure.
Definitely.
It still bothers me when I see these YouTubers and other personalities who are still just infested with TDS brainworms, and they can't get behind it. They can't. I mean, for a minute.
We didn't even get into what happened with Destiny on the show today. But Brian from the Popcast, any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
You can find me at the Popcast on YouTube or Pop Culture Unleashed and Popcast Guys. Final thoughts, I would say, I think you're right, Mr. Reagan. I think the window is shifting. A lot of my friends I have some liberal friends that they were messaging me after the thing happened. They're like, I don't know, this image goes so hard. Look at what Trump did. And other friends of mine who were conservatives, but never out, out of the conservative closet. They're like, oh, I'm just going to endorse Trump now. Like, this is clearly where we need to be. A lot of patriotism, a lot of people just saying F it. Look at the endorsements we got right after that. Tons of people online. Dude, that weirdo Keemstar was like, I endorse Trump. I didn't see that coming. So I think that I think this is a really good shift, and I hope that it translates, like Mr. Reagan says, into the entertainment industry, and I think it will. I don't see why it wouldn't.
All right,
Microsoft
everyone
got rid of their entire DEI team, so maybe I don't think that it's going to happen in Hollywood. I mean, but it might. It might. We can pray. We can all pray.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, if you enjoyed the power of many on the panel, you can get links to all their channels in the description, but also we pinned a link to Mr. Reagan's channel in the chat. So if you want to go and subscribe to him right now, let's signal boost this guy because he puts out really good content. Really appreciate him. And in fact, Mr. Reagan is so appreciated. Kelchi Oki for $2 says, bring Tom Cruise back more often. We will try.
The resemblance is stunning. I have to admit, the resemblance is stunning.
It's very late for Tom Cruise right now. I believe it's like bumping up to like 3 a.m. or something like that.
Taller version of Tom Cruise.
Yes. So Dutch Butters, what do we got going on the Salty Nerd Gaming channel and for Salty Nerd stuff in general this week?
Salty Nerd Gaming channel. We're doing 2 Salt Divers podcasts a week now on Tuesdays and Fridays. They're doing really well. Thank you for everybody that's bothered to go over there. If you haven't yet, go check it out. It's a lot of fun. And we're streaming Hell Divers. We're getting ready to check out the a new game that's going to be coming out in a couple months. It's I can't think of it. Space Marine 2. We're going to be doing that. We're kind of into the squad-based shooter type of games, so they're a lot of fun. We're building a really fun community over there. And
just waiting for you guys to eventually find your way to Dota.
Yeah, I don't have time. I barely have time to do this, what we're doing over there right now. And honestly, Matt, I kind of forgot what we were going to be watching for next week.
Twisters.
Twisters. I guess I'm going to the movies this weekend. So,
Yep.
Okay.
Plural.
Here we go. That's what we got going on.
All right, and we're going to try to start getting our live
Just
Twitter
when you thought it
Spaces.
was safe to go back into the country. Twisters.
We're going to try to get our live Twitter Spaces going up again for people who enjoyed doing that with us. But want to give a big thanks to Brian G for all of his generosity and everyone who gave us super chats today. Brian G, DeBeast808, and Marks47, and Kelchi Oki. Thank you guys so much for your support. And I also thank you to everyone who gave us gifted memberships. I believe it was Jillian N, Major Chai Chai, Eric Winberg. You guys are awesome. As always, thank you so much for your generosity. And if you guys got a gifted membership, be sure to check out our members only playlist. We just put out a new video last week. We're going to be a little bit more regular about putting out members content on the YouTube channel. So take advantage of that while you can. And also be sure to stick around because we're going to be going over to the Real McCoy podcast right after this episode is over. But guys, I also want to say thank you all who participate in the chat. I know it can get heated sometimes. Tempers flare. I'm looking at you, Odin. But we appreciate you all being here and voicing your opinion. Like we don't normally like to moderate the chat all that much, but sometimes, you know, if somebody's bringing like the level down, we just have to boot them. Like that's just the sad reality of it. We wish everyone could get along, but we understand. But we appreciate all of you guys who show up every week and watch us. Really love you guys. And as always, tune in next Saturday, same salty time, same salty channel for more Salty Saturdays, and stay salty, my friends.
If you only knew the power of one, the power of two, the power of many.